Welcome to the third session of our Breakthrough Curriculum into Action Professional Learning series on the SBC Way Writing Curriculum. My name is Elaine McHenry, a member of the SBC Way Inspire Learning team. In today's session, I'm joined by George Crawford from our SBC Early Years Teacher team, who will share with us his expertise and insights into how we can approach sentence level instruction across the early years. Explicitly teaching sentence level skills is something that is often overlooked in the classroom as we jump straight to genre writing and structure, despite it being an essential component for becoming a successful writer. This session looks at how we can incorporate sentence level instruction into our daily writing. The QR code on the screen will take you to a file of supporting resources that you will find useful as we progress through the session. Take some time now before we begin to scan the QR code and continue when you are ready. The aims for this session, first of all, is to develop an understanding and knowledge of sentence level instruction and what we mean by that, and through providing practical examples, strategies and tools, how we can successfully deliver this in the classroom. As with all our interaction sessions, we aim to make these sessions as interactive as possible, providing core input and the opportunities to try out some of the suggested classroom tasks and also provide ample opportunity for discussion. The SBC Way Writing curriculum is underpinned by the research-based simple view of writing, which identifies 3 separate components that learners engage in to become writers, overarched by the purpose and motivation to write. These 3 components, text generation, which include words, sentences and paragraphs, transcription, which can be thought of as the secretarial skills, spelling, punctuation, keyboard, handwriting skills, and the executive functions of planning and outlining, revising and editing, which we will look at in a future session. Learners are expected to use all of these skills simultaneously as they write. Our SBC model for writing is supported by and promotes the relationship between other aspects of literacy, oracy and reading, and the importance of knowledge and experience in the writing curriculum to allow all learners to engage in writing across a range of genres and text types. As you are aware, the SBC Way Writing curriculum is based on a story of 3 parts: building a writing culture environment, which you may have already looked at, developing skills for writing, and then that ultimate goal where parts 1 and 2 come together to create independent and engaged writers. All too often, the skills for writing and sentence building, once past that initial teaching of what a sentence is brushed aside as we begin to focus on the structure of different text types and genres. The work of Dr. Hoffman and the team behind the Writing Revolution suggests that developing explicit sentence writing skills is an essential across all ages and stages to support learners in developing the sophistication of their writing. As has been said many times before, the best practice comes from the adult in the room. Modelling as an effective pedagogy allows learners to hear the thinking processes as well as see the example. Whilst the use of waggles is a helpful way for learners to see what they're aiming for, demystifying the thought processes behind how it was achieved is important. Modelling sentence level instruction is supportive of visual learners and encourages learners to be actively engaged in their own learning process as they mirror the teacher's actions. Before we dive any deeper into sentence level instruction, it's worth mentioning that grammar and punctuation are best taught in the context of writing, as it brings more meaning and relevance when learners can see how it fits into a real sentence. By teaching in context rather than exercises in isolation, learners can begin to understand the effect punctuation can have on the tone or meaning of a sentence. Learners can see the immediate impact using the correct grammar and punctuation has on their own work. So, let's take a deeper dive into the whys of sentence level instruction and the different elements that, when put together, build a picture of sentence building strategies and hopefully pick up some scaffolds and tasks to support as we go.
We'll begin today by addressing the central question of why do we teach sentence level skills? There are many reasons why developing these skills is an essential part of our young writer's journey. They help learners to use written language structures in their writing, rather than writing as we speak. Adults should find opportunities to model and encourage writing in everyday and playful contexts, and should model writing for specific audiences, such as, for example, writing a letter to a family member or instructions for a new piece of equipment. This will help them to develop their awareness of the conventions and formats of many different types of writing, and will reinforce that writing can be used for a range of purposes. They alleviate cognitive load. Fluency in any area is based on practice. Writing has many component skills, and pupils must practice these until they can do them automatically. The more component skills that are practiced to automaticity, the less the cognitive load will be for the child, enabling them to write fluently with accuracy and confidence. It helps to teach grammar to build knowledge and vocabulary. Sentence level instruction reinforces typical grammar conventions, punctuation, and capitalization. Learners need to understand that writing has a meaning and a structure, and that the words they write can tell a story and be read back to them again. It boosts comprehension skills. Sentence structure is undoubtedly key in learning to write, but it's also inherent in the process of learning to read. As students learn to create more complex sentences through their writing and oral language, this has a positive impact on their ability to understand what they read. Preparation for the executive function skills of revising and editing. Discussing and displaying the steps or questions that learners can ask themselves when checking their writing is also helpful to promote independence with a skill. This will encourage the habit of rereading what has been written to ensure that there are no obvious errors and that it makes sense to the reader.
Pause the video here and take some time to familiarise yourself with the sentence level instruction part of the writing progression pathway and the supporting guidance. The QR code on the left will take you straight to the writing progression pathways under the headings Step to Success. Scroll down to find your level. The QR code on the right will take you to a guidance document to support sentence and paragraph level work in your setting. Across the SBCUA writing progression pathway, we give consideration to 3 types of sentences. Beginning in early level with simple sentences containing one subject, the who or what, and one verb, what the subject is doing. A simple sentence makes sense on its own. Across first level, we begin to look at creating compound sentences. 2 simple sentences joined together with a coordinated conjunction such as and, but, so, for, or, yet. Learners can benefit from exercises in which they look to deconstruct a compound sentence into 2 simple sentences and identifying the coordinating conjunction. Within second level, the focus is on complex sentences. Complex sentences consist of an independent clause or phrase which makes sense on its own, and a dependent clause or phrase that needs the independent clause to provide context and meaning. As the giraffe stretched his long neck to reach the highest branch, the dependent clause, he carefully pulled the juicy leaves with his long tongue, savouring every bite, is the independent clause as it makes sense on its own. As with compound sentences in first level, learners will benefit from deconstructing complex sentences, identifying the independent and dependent clauses.
Learners should be actively encouraged to write for enjoyment and to explore the patterns and sounds of language in a range of play, imaginative, and real contexts. Offering the learners choices of interesting, developmentally appropriate, challenging, risk-appropriate play areas within the classroom or the ELC setting and in outdoor areas is an important way of providing stimuli for all types of writing. Using your skillful and sensitive interactions will also enable the learners to be creative and curious. Adults can play a guiding role in reading and acting out stories using puppets, story stones, dressing up clothes and other role play resources. And story pictures which can be scrambled and reordered are all potential interactions that will benefit the children in their learning about the structure of texts. Writing together with learners on paper and whiteboards or using digital technology can also be a powerful learning experience, encouraging learners to assume shared authorship and to see the components of the writing process in action and to begin to understand sentence structure. Modelling and scaffolding. Learners need to hear well-formed sentences with correct grammar in order to learn about the rules of their language. We can engage in this modelling at first verbally and, as the children's skills develop, later in written form. Seeing adults write is a powerful way to demonstrate to children how writing fits into daily life, and it offers a chance to explain why we write and in what contexts. This in turn helps children to see how necessary writing is and how enjoyable it can be to write. We should make a point of showing the children how often we need to write during our typical day for all kinds of reasons. Learners can then become involved in practical writing activities such as contributing to the calendar, diary, notice board, writing letters to their friends or to class visitors. Deliberate practice. To write meaningfully, children must have the motivation and inspiration to write in the first place. Adults should start with the child's interests and find relevant opportunities in children's self-initiated play to model and encourage writing for a purpose, such as creating a sign for a den or writing invitations to a tea party. It's important that learners understand that there are many purposes to writing: to inform, persuade, entertain, or explain. Writing is also a useful way for them to express their own feelings. The 4 components of deliberate practice are motivation. You have to be motivated to improve. This can be achieved by linking what you're doing to the child's interests, by giving them insight into the purpose of their writing, and by empowering them to express their own ideas. Focus. Remember to break tasks into small, manageable parts. Feedback. Talking to the children about what has been written and offering praise as well as suggestions on how to improve. And repetition, revisiting basic skills, once again aiming for the level of automaticity that will allow the children to eventually carry out written tasks with a reduced level of cognitive demand. As well as our normal everyday interactions and dialogue with the children, the inclusion of some playful adult-led activities, when carried out appropriately, can be beneficial in a play-based approach. Adult-led activities should be fun, short, focused sessions taught with pace and purpose. The length of these sessions should depend on how engaged the children are. In some settings, adult-led activities might last no more than 5 minutes at first and could build up to 30 minutes by the very end of the early years. It's important to carefully monitor children's behaviour in all adult-led activities. If children seem overwhelmed or disengaged, don't be afraid to stop and start again at a later time or date when they're ready to resume. The more playful each adult-led activity is, the more likely it is that children's learning will benefit. The QR code on this slide provides a link for practitioners to access a more detailed Word document which gives numerous suggestions for introducing sentence-level activity using interactions, experiences, and physical spaces. For example, in our interactions with the children, we should use longer sentences to encourage understanding. As the children's literacy skills grow, we can verbally model increasingly complex sentence structure and begin to use more advanced vocabulary, encouraging pupils to develop their understanding by using contextual clues. Talk about the child's interests. Couching our dialogue in a context with which the child is already familiar will aid their comprehension. Expand on what the child says by adding your own supporting statements. By doing this, you acknowledge and encourage the child's contribution to the interaction, but also provide an example of vocabulary or sentence structure that's one small step ahead in terms of the sophistication of the language that's being used. Offer specific praise. For example, that was a really interesting sentence. You remembered to use the word. Avoid anticipating or completing the child's sentences, which limits their opportunity to express themselves. This can be particularly tricky if we see a child struggling to find the right words, but try to avoid the temptation to jump to their aid too quickly. It's better to hold back and allow them to finish their thought independently. Scribe children's thoughts and ideas, modeling writing for different purposes, for example in floor books or scribed narratives. In our learning spaces, we should reduce background noise when talking to young children. Plan for quiet times within the day when children can listen to an adult talking to the group. Use wall displays to make the learning visible. Display literacy work in progress, using, for example, word banks and story maps. Provide good examples of working texts written or scribed by the teacher and pupils together. This might include a board or wall or poster which allows pupils to borrow vocabulary and phrases from good examples, or visual prompts created by the class or smaller groups to aid the retelling of a story. Elements of this may be changed to allow new stories to be created. Offer writing toolkits containing appropriate resources which have been chosen by adults and pupils together. Excite learners with different kinds of paper, diaries, pencils, markers and pens. Just like a book nook, this needs to be a space that inspires children and one that they enjoy using. In the experiences we offer the children, we can take turns within small groups to speak in simple sentences and comment on, for example, how people feel or what they're wearing or doing. Give children thinking time. Give children the opportunity to practice forming sentences using a variety of media, orally using technology, scribed or written independently. Demonstrate using clear examples, beginning with the teacher or adult modeling the strategy that's being taught. Ensure learners have the content knowledge necessary to complete the task. Throughout the early level, there are many strategies and approaches we can use to help pupils to progress. While learners are still in the pre-literate stage and lack the necessary skills to decode actual words, there are still lots of ways in which we can help them to verbally construct their own sentences. Creation and use of a variety of visual prompts by the teacher and learners together, such as story stones and story pictures, can provide opportunities for imaginative wordplay. Sequencing pictures from a familiar story can help pupils to internalize fundamentals of story structure, beginning, middle, and end, and use commonly found phrases such as once upon a time or happily ever after. As reading and writing skills develop further towards the later stages of early level, sentence word jigsaws and scrambled sentences can be used to allow learners to rehearse a text orally before writing their own. Colorful semantics is a system that color codes sentences according to the role of different words. It can help learners to break down sentences and understand the individual meaning of each word and its role in the sentence. It can help the learners to better understand word order. More information on this can be found in the SBC Way Writing Guidance document.
You can see here how colourful semantics can be used to build up and develop simple sentences, first orally and then in written form. If you wish to know more about colourful semantics, there is a recorded CPD session delivered by Leader Valley Language and Communication Service teachers available via the Launchpad. If you decide to try it out for yourself, please be aware that the SBC use the colour codes from the book produced by NHS Forth Valley called Colourful Semantics, a resource for developing children's spoken and written language skills, which differ from the colour codes you might come across on other online resources. We've already heard from George the why of teaching sentence level skills in early level. As we move through the levels, the whys don't change. It is important to remember that as the complexity of the sentence level skill grows, it is an expectation that it should be taught across all levels. As you have just explored, there is a guidance document available to support the teaching of sentence level skills. Within it, you'll find explanations of the skills and some ideas to take back to the classroom. Please bear in mind though that most of the activities in the guidance can be adapted across levels and that they can be turned into oral tasks or practical games. The next few slides will take us through some of the activities in more detail. As we move through each of the sentence level instruction skills that make up the writing progression pathway, it's worth mentioning that the best practice comes from the adult in the room. Modelling plays an important role in developing these skills, as does oral rehearsal. And to quote from the Writing Revolution, you don't need to write to be writing. Alongside modelling and oral rehearsal comes a set of steps to support learner engagement in developing these skills. Just remember though, not all steps are relevant to all skills. Before we can ask our learners to create compound and complex sentences and to link ideas together, we must first focus on the core elements of a sentence. Within first level, we concentrate on identifying the subject, the who, what the sentence is about, and the verb, adding adjectives and adverbs for description and detail. Whilst in second level, we look to identifying the subject and the predicate, which includes the verb and the remainder of the sentence. As with sentence types, learners will benefit from activities that encourage them to break sentences down into these building blocks, subject and verb across first level, and subject and predicate across second. It's worth mentioning here that the first level activities suggested throughout the building sentence level instruction can be carried out orally in the Primary 1 classroom. A useful activity to introduce sentences and fragments is to ask learners to identify each. If it is a fragment, learners should complete the sentence. In your sentence examples, don't add the punctuation as it's the job of the learner to do this. This works across both levels using a relevant text that learners can access. To practice building sentences when provided with a fragment, either the subject or the verb predicate, learners can provide the other. Fragments can come from either images or from text. Put yourself in the learner's shoes and have a go. Given the subject as a fragment, complete the sentence by adding the verb, and given the predicate, create the sentence by adding the subject. Pause the video if you wish to share your sentences within your group. Possible answers could be, the young birds wait to be fed, or the playful puppy chased the ball round the garden. Explicitly teaching sentence types, being able to recognise and create a statement, question, exclamation and command equips learners with different sentence structures that can be applied to make writing more interesting engagement and fit for many purposes. Learners can be asked to generate sentence types from an image, a topic or a word. Put yourself in your learner's shoes and have a go at creating a statement, question, command and exclamation to match the image, topic and word. Possible answers could be, the sunflowers swayed in the field. A question for Edinburgh, where in Edinburgh should I visit? Or a statement, Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland. And from the word vote, a command could be, register to vote. Or an exclamation, every vote counts. The next skill to look at is sentence openers and the different ways this can be developed across the levels, starting in early level with the use of the, a and pronouns and sequence words. to adverb openers in first level and using fronted adverbials and adverbial phrases in second. Within first level, sentence openers are developed through the use of using words ending with ly and ing. Through simple tasks such as building word banks, choosing an appropriate word and rearranging sentences, learners begin to build up their repertoire of sentence openers. Although we ultimately want our learners to write better sentences using a variety of openers or any of the sentence skills, practice does not always have to involve writing. Many of these tasks and activities across all levels can be practiced and rehearsed orally before learners engage in the actual writing process. Within second level, learners are introduced to adverbial phrases using ly or ed words as openers to sentences to provide information about how, when, where, or to what extent something happened. As with sentence types and fragments, learners will benefit from first of all identifying adverbial phrases within sentences and choosing an appropriate phrase before they are asked to write. Here, in the first sentence, treading carefully, Bob tried to avoid the squeaky floorboards, the adverbial phrase is treading carefully. And secondly, fearing the answer, he asked the question anyway, the adverbial phrase being fearing the answer. Using fronted adverbials as sentence openers is a more sophisticated skill. They can be organised into categories of how, when or where, time, place and manner, frequency and reason, and used to add detail to the start of a sentence. Through modelling and oral practice, learners can build up a bank of words and phrases for each purpose, sorting, identifying and choosing before they begin to create and write their own. Put yourself in your learner's shoes and have a go at choosing the best fronted adverbial phrase to complete the sentence. Can you identify its category? Our first sentence could be completed with the phrase with a shrug of his shoulders to indicate manner. The second sentence, perhaps just this once, indicating frequency. And finally, indicating place under the stairs could be used to complete the third sentence. Before we take a short break, pause the video here and take some time to reflect on what you've heard so far. How comfortable you feel with the strategies? What challenges do you see? How will you engage your learners in these tasks? Restart the video when you are ready. Moving on from sentence openers, we're now going to take a look at sentence transitions. Transitions are important to show relationships between ideas and provide connections between sentences and paragraphs, making the writing more engaging and readable. Again, they can be categorised by purpose. The writing progression pathway indicates the purpose and focus for each level. It is important to remember that time and sequence, for example, is not exclusive to early level. This is when it would be explicitly taught but applied across all other levels, whilst the other categories make up the explicit teaching for that level. First level transition would focus on conclusion, illustration, change of direction and emphasis, and while second level builds on these categories, using the transition word in the middle of the sentence is the skill being developed in second level. Our next skill to look at is sentence expansion. This can be done in two ways, using because, but, so, and by using question words. To expand a sentence using because, but, so, it is important that the learners understand the purpose of each word, with because explains reason or cause, but indicating a change of direction, and so telling us what has happened as a result of something, cause and effect. Classroom activities to support this can include choosing the correct word to complete a sentence, completing a sentence when provided with a sentence stem, which can come from any curriculum area. The example here is from science, where the learners have been investigating electric circuits. After modelling and practice, learners can move on to creating their own expanded sentences using because, but, and so. Expanding sentences using question words helps create richer, more detailed sentences, adding clarity and creativity. This method of sentence expansion also encourages the learners to think about what the reader might need to know to understand the sentence. Some classroom activities include identifying the who, when, where, why, what from a written or spoken sentence. In this example, identifying Malala as the who in the sentence. Question words can also be used to expand a kernel or basic phrase. In this example, the learner was given the kernel phrase, "The Titanic sank," and asked to expand it using when and where to create the expanded sentence, "On its maiden voyage, the Titanic sank in the North Atlantic Ocean." Using question words is also a good way to find out learner knowledge and understanding. Pause the video here while you put yourself into your learner's shoes. Using the question words, expand the kernel or basic phrase. Share your ideas into the room and continue when you're ready. Following sentence expansion comes sentence elaboration. Sentence elaboration is the process of adding more detail or information to a simple sentence, encouraging learners to move beyond the simple sentence structure to more complex sentences which engage the reader. The first steps of sentence elaboration is through vocabulary, adding adjectives and adverbs. Take a few seconds to elaborate the sentence "The girl ran" using adjectives and adverbs. It could be elaborated to "The energetic girl ran quickly down the street." Learners should be given practice in inserting relative pronouns into sentences as well, in preparation for, in second level, creating a relative clause to elaborate a sentence. By second level, learners could be adding a relative clause, a group of words to add extra information about the noun in the sentence, starting with a relative pronoun. Have a go at elaborating the sentence, "The scientist continued with his experiment," using a relative clause. Using a relative clause, the sentence could become, "The scientist, who was quite mad, continued with his experiments." We've looked at using adverbial phrases as openers, but they're also a useful way to elaborate sentences. To elaborate a sentence, an adverbial phrase, a group of words, act like a verb, telling us more information on how, when, where, why, or to what extent. Take a look at each of the sentences in turn. Do they contain an adverb or an adverbial phrase? Sentence 1 contains an adverb, "quickly," and sentence 2 contains an adverbial phrase, "in the busy city centre." Another skill to elaborate a sentence at second level is the use of appositives. An appositive is a noun or noun phrase placed next to another noun to give more information or explanation. For example, "My brother is coming to visit," with an appositive, might become, "My brother, a talented musician, is coming to visit." And you might add "world sporting event" as an appositive to the second sentence. "The Olympics bring together athletes from all disciplines of sport," with an appositive might become, "The Olympics, a world sporting event, brings together athletes from all disciplines of sport." There are several steps to introduce appositive to learners, and all should be modelled and practised orally before asking learners to write. Take a few moments to spot the appositive in the sentence. "Igneous rock," a rock formed from cooled magma or lava, is often found near volcanic regions. That's right, the appositive, a rock formed from cooled magma or lava, gives us more information on igneous rock. And the sentence, many children, evacuees from cities, found homes with families in the countryside. With the appositive being evacuees from cities, which gives us more information and detail of the many children. Now let's think about creating a sentence giving an appositive. On the topic of football, create a sentence giving the appositive, a popular sport played worldwide. An elaborated sentence might be, football, a popular sport played worldwide, requires both strategy and teamwork to succeed. And on the topic of Robert the Bruce, the appositive, famous Scottish king and warrior, could become the elaborated sentence, Robert the Bruce, a famous Scottish king and warrior, led Scotland during its fight for independence in the 14th century. Not to be forgotten in sentence elaboration are the importance of literary devices. The use of similes, metaphors, alliteration and onomatopoeia play a big part in second-level sentence learning. Again, learners will benefit from seeing examples, identifying them in text, hearing them modelled before using them in their own writing. The final sentence level skill to give some consideration to brings together all the skills learners have been taught. Sentence combining is the ideal opportunity for learners to apply and put into practice their knowledge of other sentence building skills, including using coordinating and subordinating conjunctions, relative clauses, transitions and appositives, according to the level at which they are working. Now that we are familiar with some of the sentence level instructions and strategies, it's worth pointing out that sentence level can be used to support and develop writing across all areas of the curriculum, using question words in expressive art, because, but, so in science, and using appositives in literacy and IDL. The possibilities are endless. Now that we've covered most of the sentence level skills from the progression pathway, and I appreciate it is a lot, pause the video here and give some thought to how your understanding of sentence building techniques may have changed over the session. Think about which ones you would find most challenging and choose what ones you would like to implement in your practice. Pause the video here and continue when you're ready. Just a quick reminder that many of our iPad apps could be used to support sentence level instruction, and to mention that many of the templates can be found on Showbie for you to access and share with your learners. Use the code on the screen to access the SBC Way Showbie page. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of what is meant by sentence level skills and feel more prepared to take it into your classroom. The practical examples we've looked at, alongside the writing guidance document, should give you some ideas on how to use a topic, word or text to develop sentence level skills, and hopefully we now recognise the benefits of teacher modelling, not just in the Blue Peter's "here's one I made earlier" sense, but in the thinking aloud to show the thought processes behind it. In the next session, we'll look at the third part of our story of 3 parts, engaged and independent writers, looking at that final point of the simple view of writing and the steps of the writing process. Pause the video here and take some time to consider today's content and create your call to action plan, which can be found in the support resource file or use the QR code on the screen. What would be your 3 main takeaways? Tomorrow, what might you do different in your classroom? As you put your plan into action, think about what went well and even better ifs, and we'll take some time next session to share these. Continue when you are ready. Just a few of the texts that we delved into as we put together our SBC WE writing curriculum, should you be looking for some professional reading. This video into action session is part of a new approach we are introducing in an attempt to support all schools and all practitioners across SBC to engage with the same message and activities, but at an individually convenient time. By providing video content with in-person facilitators in each school, whilst not the same as a full live session, we can achieve widespread learning. Your feedback on how to maximise this approach is really valuable. All that's left to say now is thank you for your time and engagement in today's session. Here's to making a difference to the lives and learning of our children and young people.